my presentation is about the use of artificial intelligence and deep learning in tourism, in contemporary tourism services and platform as a tool for unmasking the traces of fraud, fake that have characterized the tourism industry, and in particular the mass tourism narrative. I mean, the idea that tourism is the industry of fake, and you can see there an image that's, I think, quite representative of that. In particular, we'll focus on how artificial intelligence targets the faces of the tourists in search for sign of specific personality trait related to fraud, untruthfulness, untrustworthiness. By combining the most innovative technologies based on artificial intelligence with the most retrograde principle of the physiognomy. Before getting to the point, I will propose some thoughts on how the tourism practices have been imbricated with the dimension of the fake, of the fraud, that are in turn occulted or magnified. We won't expect here to have a structural analysis of the tourism making meaning process, of course. Rather, I will illustrate some figures as markers of the above mentioned imbrication. So I'll start with by showing you these accessories from the Louis Vuitton Fall 21 show. And in fashion industry, blogs have started to refer to the style of this bag as tourist core. What does it mean, tourist core? The tourist core is a neologism that refers to an aesthetic similar to the gore-core, that is the mountain style, and the loungewear that recently became popular. In terms of design, the tourist core put at the center the utility, with its technical feature and fabrics, lots of strategic pockets and detail based on practicality. The accessories and these accessories and other that has been seen in recent Fall 21 shows by famous designers, engage with the dimension of excess and clumsiness similar to the one of mass tourism. In fact, those elements that we can also see in these famous sculpture from this famous hyperrealistic sculpture from Duan Anson, that are titled The Tourist, in fact. So according to the different series of photographs devoted to mass tourism as a part of the global consumerism, the photographer Martin Parr picture how the tourists are always involved with the excess, with the stage dimension, with the ugliness, with the repetition, you know, the cue. So going back to the tourist core, it's not by chance that the same Martin Parr has been chosen by Gucci for the Cruise 2019 collection campaign. So the tourist condition has been portrayed across time as involved in noisy, eternal research of the essence of the place, which is behind the scenes. In all the new representation, the tourist, isolated from the host environment, moves in guided groups and find pleasure in unauthentic, contrived attraction. Enjoy the pseudo events, enjoy the fake event. So it's very easy to refer to Erving Goffman's terms, front versus back. Tourists, in this sense, tourists can be depicted as always try to enter back region of the places, but then inevitably, in the case of mass tourism representation, those settings would have been arranged to produce the impression that a back region has been actually entered. So in the classical representation, the clumsy structural find to the place essence inevitably end up in the so-called temples of fake, such as gift shop, resorts, those places around what McAnally is pioneer semiotics of tourism, called stage authenticity. In the mass tourism representation, the tourist is the subject of the vision, always equipped with a camera, whose gaze is noisy, intrusive, and disrespectful, and ultimately condemned to fail in the willing to get to the back region where an allegedly authenticity rose. So the mass tourism obviously has been from all sides so scorned and so smoked, not to mention the critic, the tourism impact on the environment, in particular the carbon print, that all the contemporary tourism discourses try to deny every single element that has traditionally characterized the tourism industry. The dimension of the vision has been reoriented toward a software gaze, and the same time more insidious one in its attempt to penetrate the back region and engage with the authenticity of the place. As such, the narrative of those services labeled as experiential tourism refuse the definition of tourism just as sightseeing activity by claiming for a sensorial involvement of the visitor in a sort of presesthetic, a fusion between the subject and the object. Such holistic performance of the place and such successful encounter with the otherness of the place as advertised by contemporary tourism communication requires in the stage of the competence a mimetic identification between the tourist and the local. That noisy style of the mocked mass tourists need to be replaced by camouflage code with the otherness. Has if the tourists stop to be so and become like a local. So life there is in fact one of the most successful Airbnb campaign, and here you can read the explanation of Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky explaining how the Airbnb is different, and they really engage with the fact that tourists don't want to be stuck in long lines anymore and fighting with the crowds. They really want to be part of a community. I won't read the whole quote, but you can make the idea. So according to such narrative, tourism can be no longer distinguished by daily life, and all the heavy infrastructure of tourism industry became basically pointless. In such vein, the new tourism narrative reputed even the definition of industry, a claim to be instead, as in the words of Brian Chesky, a community. The complex processes and the large-scale infrastructure implied by the tour operators' markets have been replaced by a simple, clean, apparently clean digital platform, an online marketplace, a two-side platform, similar to a social network populated by profile of community members who interact online for sharing assets then later on the offline world. The assets are generally the most intimate and private ones, homes or even experiences. These latter's intangible goods align with the creative tourism manifesto that acknowledges the learning dimension involved in travel. This latter dimension engage with the emphasis on a face-to-face relation between visitor and the local, bypassing the tourism industry intermediation. The platform economy narrative resembles the rhetoric of the sharing of assets, the sharing of knowledge, and of collaboration, denying its monetary dimension in favor of the professionalization of the service, which is based on the value of the trust. No longer than there is a need of an external authority who makes the experience possible, as used to be the tour operator, for example, is the same community who is the arbiter of the authenticity of the experience. But recently, the platform tourism, and I'm getting to the point at the end, recently the platform tourism has employed artificial intelligence technology to reinforce the authenticity of the tourist experience against the stage and therefore fake dimension of mass tourism as a tool, and has a tool for perpetuating the trust as main value of the exchange. I am now at the core of my presentation, even if I will just sketch some idea. The same Airbnb, and it's worth mentioned that despite the COVID pandemic, on December 2020, the company debuted in the public market, starting trading with the Nasdaq. So despite the global tourism crisis, one of the most important players actually made a fortune in, and so now is public. So the same Airbnb as full its growth using machine learning and data analytics. It recently used extensive data mining to analyze and predict user behavior and the performance of the listing. So firstly, the company has developed a deep learning algorithm to identify rooms and the feature of the listing photos in order not only to display the most relevant images according to the guest taste, but also to confirm the amenity host claim to offers. So time is over for fake pools or any fake facilities listed as so. And it would be interesting in this regard to see if the software is also able to detect those deep fakes that escape to the human vision. But secondly, and more interestingly, another use of artificial intelligence swap the point of vision. Traditionally, the tourist gazing at the place as object of the vision. And the use of technology looks back to the tourist, and in particular at the tourist face, which is the main point of that I'm trying to make. So therefore, this second use of artificial intelligence technology aimed at verifying the fraud and in particular the trustworthy of the guest. It targets directly the tourist as the object of the vision of a machine vision eye, of course. The innovation, it comes after complaints from hosts that guests having parties and trashing properties. So in order to stop the misuse of the host homes, Airbnb developed this technology that looks at guests' online personality. This is the description when they book. So to calculate the risk of them, in fact, trashing a host home, destroying properties. So at this point, we can ask what are the personality traits of someone who could potentially trash a house, and perhaps more importantly, what's the feature of his or her face. A tool to catch these potential bad actors has been developed by Truly. That is a startup that has been acquired by Airbnb in 2017 that scans the internet to judge the suitability of the customer. So it's deliver instant service, screening and predicting trustworthy relationships and interaction. And they say our instant trust rating service is designed to fill a trust gap caused by the speed of modern e-commerce and community. So basically, the software scans sites, including social media, for traits in search for traits such as neuroticism, the involvement in crime, narcissism, Machiavellism, or psychopathy, traits that are obviously perceived as untrustworthy. So in order to identify such deviant personalities, any text, but also images and video file showing individual associated with drugs, alcohol, or hate speech in case of tests, also result in poor score and are marked down by the system. Unfortunately, unfortunately for this presentation, this technology was revealed in a patent published by the European Patent Office. So I couldn't find more information other than that. So I'm telling you what only come from secondary sources, psychology the buzz on the internet. But what is clear to this point is that the narcissism, Machiavellism, or psychopathy are also inferred by social media profile of the user and consequently by their faces. What we have to admit is that the traditional physiognomic hasn't been as sophisticated as to assessing a Machiavelli's character or personality from their outer appearance. It would be of course of interest then to find out which are the instructions that the machine have been given to search for a Machiavellic face. And again, is the narcissistic the one who have lots of selfies? This is what the machine is looking for. Of course, we don't know. Behind this question that still remain open, and I'm jumping to conclusion, the artificial intelligence used by tourism platform looks back to the tourists who become the object of the tourist gaze in a circular mechanism that can be illustrated by the format of the selfie. We know the selfie very well. We are also in our research group brilliant studies on that. So we know selfie is a composition. That means that the camera, instead of extending outward to capture a destination in case of tourism, is pointed at the self by the self. In tourism, within such approaches, the face of the tourist, instead of the place, become the object of his or her self-directed gaze. And by so doing, we can arguably the face replace the face in tourism photography. And I'm really finishing now, telling that in the framework of the surveillance capitalism, the focus on the commodification of biometric or personal data, including the biometric ones, as conceptualized the famous book by Shoshana Zuboff. So in the framework of this capitalism of surveillance, the tourist's eye is gazing back at the tourist, and the tourist ends up surveilling himself or herself and his own or her own face as in a selfie. In 2021, tourism industry has survived more than a year of forced immobility. So this time, the risk of a trashed home has been solved at its source. Tourism now is slowly recovering, and protocols and regulatory measure against COVID has fostered a culture of safety, of sanitization. Airbnb thus urged us to offer self-check-in modalities to their guests in this way, and so in this way minimizing in-person contacts. The visible face, the visible facade of tourism subject to sanitization risk then to disappear. Additionally, machine vision is now training to catch the faces of those dodgy tourists who wanted to live like a local. And this is all for my presentation today. Thank you for your attention.